On June 14th, 2023, I took a road trip from New Jersey to Ohio in my 2022 Chevrolet Bolt EUV. 510 miles, one way.
Never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. Let's get him!
It really wasn't that bad. It was actually a very easy experience. Other than that one hiccup we had in the morning that you saw in my last video. Here is the sheets here on the right. We're gonna pull in and it's closed. Oh, that's a problem. You gotta be kidding me. And I kind of know I left you guys hanging. To be honest, the journey was fairly uneventful. Not much else happened along the way that didn't run exactly like it should, like clockwork. You know, I went from the Sheets location in State College to the next location in Clarion, PA, to the next location in Girard, Ohio, and then to my final destination with plenty of mileage to spare. So it wasn't that exciting of a trip, but I still want to talk about it. So what I'm doing is I'm driving into work right now. It's Tuesday. It's actually my day off. However, I have two previous customers. Actually, I have one previous customer buying a car, and I have a previous customer of mine referring their family member to buy a car. So we're going to do some work today at the dealership, and I'm going to make a video kind of giving some closure to that journey that we took from New Jersey to Ohio a week or so ago. So first, let's talk about the Chevrolet Bolt EUV, right? I bought this car back in August of 2022, so I've had it just under a year, 10 months of ownership. This trip to Ohio was the first road trip I actually had to take where I had to rely on public charging. Right now, I have options, right? I could have done other things. If you're a family that has an electric car, but you have a secondary car in the family as well, which most people do, and it's a gas car, you can take the gas car on that road trip. You don't have to worry about chargers, you just fill up as you need. If you don't have a secondary car, you can always rent a car. You can pay a few $100, you rent a car, you drive out there, you don't have to charge, you don't have to worry about it. You drive back. I could have taken a flight out there. When I flew out, I could have either got Ubers and Ubered around, or I could have rented a car when I got to Ohio and driven around and then flew back. So there's definitely different options you can do, and you got to figure out what's best for you. For me, the cost associated with renting cars or flying out there and things like that, I can't justify that versus 2 hours or 2.5 hours of charge time on the way out there. So for me, and again, this trip went very smoothly other than the one little hiccup, and I'm gonna explain why we had that one hiccup. Other than that, it was actually a very easy trip. The only negative side was the wait times when you had to charge. Now, the way I planned for this trip was I hopped onto my Chevrolet app, I put in my final location, and it plotted me a route. I don't have that route, but what I do have is a route from a Better Route Planner, which is another website. And if you look here on the map, you'll notice it gives you your route, it gives you your stops, and it tells you how long you should stay at each stop to charge. Now, if you notice, it gives me the same Bloomsburg charging location that I went to that was currently closed. Had I gone to an app like PlugShare actually had a little wrench there. Now, I didn't find that out until I got to the location and did a little bit of research. That wrench would have told me that that facility is under construction and I probably shouldn't have stopped at it. Now, that wouldn't have necessarily helped me, right? Because before I get to the between, right? I was leaving basically Livingston, New Jersey, where the dealership is, right? And I was driving out west. The next charging spot that I would have had to stop at would have been in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. That would have been a Walmart location. It's right off Route 80. I've been to it before. It's very easy. If I stopped there, I could have charged the car fully, but I would have had to drive all the way to Du Bois, Pennsylvania in order to get to the next DC fast charge location, which is on Route 80. Because again, the Bloomsburg one is not operational yet. Well, that distance between East Stroudsburg and that charging location in Du Bois, Pennsylvania is 210 miles away. Now, we know the Bolt gets a 247 average estimate on a charge, but when you're on highway speeds and when you're on steep inclines and mountain passes, things like that, you're going to get less. So you tend to look at the lower number on your gauge versus the middle or the high number, assuming the worst. And to take a 210 mile highway trip, you're really cutting it close. Probably closer than I cut it with the situation, how it worked out for me that morning. So again, the only real troublesome thing on this particular road trip was the fact that you had that 210-mile gap between chargers. Now, today's June 27th. I've been looking online a couple different websites. I've also been looking at the reviews for that location in Bloomsburg, and it looks like it should be operational before the end of the month, which is Friday. So going forward, you're gonna have that location between East Stroudsburg and Du Bois, PA, where you can charge. And that's really what makes it very easy when you could hop from charger to charger. A lot of people gave me a lot of advice in the comments and things I could have done. Somebody had said you can set your cruise control for 10, 15 miles per hour below the speed limit and maximize your range. I don't want to do that. I don't think any of you want to do that. Like if the speed limit's 70, you want to be doing 70, 75. You want to get to your destination. Now, the faster you drive, obviously, the less range you're going to get. But if you can drive like 90 miles and then stop for a half hour and then drive 90 miles and stop for a half hour, you kind of just hop along those chargers along the way. You never really run into any risk of being too low on battery. And you also kind of break up the trip a little bit where you're not charging for like an hour. So what I did do was I broke down the 3 stops on the way out, and I'm going to put them on the screen for you, so you can see exactly how long I was at each location. The first one here was at State College. This was the Sheetz location with Electrify America. You can see how much I paid. I paid $14.48. I left there with an estimated charge of 76%. I was billed out for 55 kilowatts of power, and I was there for 1 hour and 16 minutes. Now again, I rolled up to that station at 3%, right? I had like 7 or 8 miles left on the car. Because of the experience I just had and me not really knowing what was ahead of me, I wanted to make sure I maximized and I stayed there as long as I could. Generally, an hour and 60 minutes is a long wait. 2 things I learned at this station. 1, I did plug into a 350 kilowatt charger. I didn't have to. The Bolt only charges at about 50 kilowatts, so if I hopped on the 150, it would have done the same thing. I just wasn't thinking. When I pulled up, there was nobody there. I pulled up to a charger, I plugged in. What I did find out is that I think that charger, the hypercharger, the 350 kilowatt charger, is more expensive than the 150. So I probably paid more just by plugging into that charger than I would have if I was on the one next to it for the same amount of charge, the same amount of juice in a sense, because the speed is no different when charging the Bolt. So after we left State College, it was my decision to go to not the Du Bois location, but the one after that in Clarion, PA. And basically how I did this was I went in the PlugShare app. I would just zoom in. I knew where I was. I found the charger. How many miles is it to that charger? So when you're on the PlugShare app, you could just hit Google Maps icon. It pushes to Google Maps. Let's say the location was 92 miles away and I have 200 miles of range. I know I'm gonna make it. Let me just get to that station. Once I got to that station and charged, you can see here I was there for about 31 minutes, 32 minutes, call it. I spent $6.03. And then at that point, I hopped back on the road. I was at 72% when I left, and I drove to the next location, which was in Ohio. This one, I just happened to notice by looking, was 48 cents a kilowatt hour versus the other ones were 19 cents a minute. I didn't do the math difference there, but I'm curious which one actually came out cheaper. Well, I can tell you right now, this was 25 kilowatts billed for 12 bucks. The last one was 21 kilowatts for 6 bucks. So this was almost a little less than double the price for the one in Ohio. Again, left at 76%. That was plenty to get me to my destination where I was, staying for the night or two that I was there. Once I got to my destination, the hotel that I was staying at, there was actually a McDonald's right there, and the McDonald's had a level 2 charger. So I went inside, I asked them if I could use it. They said, absolutely, that's what it's there for. I plugged in and I basically charged the car for a number of hours. I didn't fully charge it. So like I said earlier, when I left a couple days later, or a day and a half later, I didn't leave on a full battery. And I had to stop one extra time along the way on the way home. So, now the big question is, would I do this again? Now, in the beginning of this video, that was obviously a joke. I said never again, right? There were points in time, mostly on the way home, where I was a little frustrated, right? Because you just want to get home. I'm the type of guy that I'm going to hop in a car. If I have a range of 450 or 500 miles, in the gas tank, and I don't have to use the restroom, I'm not stopping. I'm going to drive straight through until I have to get gas again. So stopping every, 2 hours or every hour and 45 minutes or 2.5 hours to stop for a half hour, it got a little tiring, especially on the way home, because I ended up driving in the middle of the night. The last stop I was at in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, I was there at like 2:30 in the morning, for 15, 20 minutes in an empty parking lot by myself on a charger, just so I could drive the last 40, 50 miles to get home. So there is a negative aspect about it. However, for all the people that say we're not ready yet and we're not there yet, like, I made the trip. It may not have been the most optimal way to do it, but the car did it, and the chargers were there, and the chargers worked for the most part, except for the one location. So, we're there, right? We can do this. Now, can we all of a sudden just snap our fingers and have 200 million electric cars on the road? No, absolutely not. But that's not going to happen. Everything's going to gradually increase. As the vehicle production increases, the chargers are going to increase as well. You see new chargers going up all the time. So, this is something that, although people say we're not ready for it, like, I'm living that life for the last 4 years between my 2019 Bolt and now this 2022. And other than this one trip that was slightly inconvenient as far as time, it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure driving an electric vehicle. And it's only going to get better with time, right? So we know the Bolt is now discontinued. So if you currently own a Bolt, or if you have one coming in before the build out is done, you'll have to deal with a little bit slower charging times compared to new cars. You'll have to deal with the DC fast charged infrastructure and things like that. But for most people, and in my experience and what I've dealt with Bolt customers that I've sold here or that I've talked to, it's really not all that bad. And the positives outweigh the negatives almost 100% of the time. Looking into the future, what you're going to see is vehicles that can charge 2-3 times faster, if not more. You're going to see vehicles that get more range. I was kind of thinking about it while I was driving. If I had my Silverado EV already, that truck's going to get somewhere between 400 and 450 miles worth of range. This same road trip that I took in the Bolt would require only about 10 to 15 minute stop in that truck to get to the location, because it'll charge up to 350 kilowatts, 100 miles in 10 minutes. So if you're getting 400 out of the car to 450, you need 510 to get there, you're going to stop for 20 minutes to charge it along the way. That is just as good as a gas car, if not much better, because again, it's the powertrain, it's the drivability of the electric car that you're all going to love.
Let's get